This film marks the fiction debut from writer-director Dylan Southern, announcing him as a significant new talent in storytelling.
My particular connection to it was that I'd kind of lost people when I was young, and you know, at age 18, at the point when you're just starting to see the possibility in life, to suddenly be confronted with how finite it is and how that can come at any moment. And I don't think at that age I had the tools to deal with that, so I kind of pushed it down and kept it with me and you know, assimilated it in some way. And I think Max's book opened up a lot of stuff for me.
As you've mentioned, insofar that it doesn't really focus on dialogue to bring its themes to life.
I'd say that, you know, a lens on male grief and the strength of being weak, of being vulnerable, of being open and able to learn from tragedy rather than trying to oppose it with more force and more force and more force, I think is obviously quite a prevalent and strong thing. But we certainly didn't go out to make a film to make that statement. I just think that is a natural thing to celebrate in the work we've done. Yeah, uncertainty and emotional vulnerability are not sort of top of the agenda of the alpha male machismo that's being pushed as the strongman image of what masculinity is or should be. So I'm very happy to be part of storytelling that goes in the opposite direction.
Amazed with is how brave you are going deep into the very unpleasant and painful parts of human nature, be it in Petra.
One of the chief creative joys actually was working with them and treating them as fellow actors, and they were magic. And having never done it before, you know, their experience was so fresh and new and alive and honest and had such authenticity. Because of that it was just a marvel to watch. And you know, it wasn't without challenges at times, but as it should be. It's not a natural environment or a natural thing for a child to be part of, but they really swam with it, and they've given 2 extraordinary performances. What was the other part of your question? Oh, my vulnerability. Yeah, well, so children, a man in a prosthetic animatronic crow suit and bits of tape on the floor for a dead wife as opposed to an actual human. There were lots of things that weren't always, you know, perfect conditions for being vulnerable, but I felt very supported and held primarily because of the friendship I had with this guy, which came about even before the working, that's you, before the working relationship.
I have a question about like art. And art always like shows a part of the society.
There was a moment of folding the clothes up for the final time, of taking the wife's clothes off the rack and leaving an empty rack and folding the clothes into the box. And you know, I'm 48, I've been through a bit, I've lived, I've experienced grief. I think most people have by my age. Yeah, it just really struck a chord, really struck a chord. And I wasn't expecting it.
In the film there is also hope, and that's the hope that comes from the support of friends, it comes from the love of your children, it comes from finding a way and the agency to move through this situation and kind of assimilate grief rather than fight it, and to use it for what it's useful for. So I definitely want people to take away the idea of hope from this film. That's a huge part of what the intention is. A film made by lots of people who gave it their all and crafted it beautifully, and it was made with kindness, and it is a film about hope.
There's a massive difference between grief and despair. Despair doesn't have hope. Despair is when you're lost to grief. Grief is something you can live with hope, because in the end, the purpose that he finds, and I think this is true of art and kind of life in general, you know, it's paying attention, isn't it? It's a Mary Oliver quote. Attention is the beginning of devotion, and anything that involves an act of devotion becomes a sacred act. So therefore you are then engaged with something of profound meaning, whether that's in your work, whether that's with your family, whether that's in your belief or your practice or how you relate to the world at large. And, you know, I mean, casual point, if you are in despair, if you are depressed, the minute you start to pay attention to yourself, say you go for a walk, you do some exercise, being in your body is an immediate way to release yourself from going inward. You're going outward, and it starts to relinquish the anchor of despair.
How did this character help you to find inside your inner fears?
It's not an exercise in therapy for me. It's more, the process of letting go again is just that. It's an art form, and it often feels unfinished, but that doesn't mean you can finish it outside of the canvas or the blank page, or in my case, the screen or the stage. You just have to let it alone. In the case of theatre, you're dead in the water again if you start chasing the ghosts of where it felt like you were getting somewhere. You can't perfect it. It's imperfectible, so just leave it at that and do your best. And I think there's a lot of things other than work that are very important in my life to pull me out of any focus on work.